From December 2024 to January 2025, SafeWork New South Wales, the workplace health and safety regulator, conducted compliance visits across 38 bars, pubs and club venues throughout New South Wales. The findings revealed a prevalence of workplace sexual harassment, with nearly 1 in 3 of the surveyed venues reporting that workers had witnessed such incidents. This statistic underscores the urgent need for workplaces to implement effective control measures to foster safer environments. The survey found that 92% of the venues recognise the importance of addressing workplace harassment. However, many, including major hospitality organisations like Merivale, appear not to be taking sufficient steps to address these issues. Merivale has recently been the subject of media scrutiny as a result of allegedly enabling a culture that exploits women in the workplace. Their lack of response to the allegations can be linked to their apparent failure to apply open system management theory, a management approach that views organisations as interconnected with their environment. The theory essentially provides that businesses receive various inputs like resources and data, which can be used to develop good quality outputs in the form of goods and services. This inputs and outputs procedure highlights how organisations must continuously process external inputs, such as customer feedback, into outputs like services or strategies to remain competitive and responsive. The application of the management theory will enable organisations like Merivale to respond effectively to external changes and internal needs. This documentary will explore how adopting open systems management theory can facilitate more responsive and accountable workplace environments, resulting in more competitive change in the hospitality industry.
Merivale is one of Australia's largest hospitality groups, but in recent years it's faced serious scrutiny. Media stories have exposed harassment and misconduct across the industry, with Merivale often in the spotlight. These headlines have raised big questions about whether hospitality workplaces are truly safe and fair. Through the lens of open systems theory, these external forces act as inputs into Merivale. The media applies constant reputational pressure. Regulators like Fair Work and Safe Work New South Wales demand compliance. Staff and unions push for change through whistleblowing and advocacy. And society, including customers, expect cultural reform and safer environments. Put simply, Merivale can't ignore these pressures. If it does, it risks staff turnover, penalties, and long-term damage to its reputation. But if it adapts, it can rebuild trust, improve workplace culture, and secure its place in the industry for the future. These pressures explain why Merivale must be seen as an open system, constantly shaped by its environment.
Thanks, Lockie. Let's take a moment to unpack what open systems theory actually means and why it helps us understand organisations like Merivale. At its core, OST views an organisation as an open system, meaning it is not isolated but constantly interacting with external environments. These interactions can take the form of inputs, transformations, and outputs. Consider Merivale right now. The organisation is facing a variety of external pressures: media scrutiny, social expectations, regulatory investigations. In an open system, these are all inputs, resources, information, or pressures that have entered the organisation from the outside. Merivale then transforms these inputs through its management systems, workplace policies, and business decisions. The outputs are what the Merivale sends back into the environment, such as hospitality services, level of legal compliance, and public reputation. On the screen, you'll see a simple diagram illustrating this concept. Merivale sits in the centre, surrounded by a system boundary that defines the organisation. Arrows coming in that represent inputs, media intentions, social expectations, regulations, and resources. And then inside, the organisation processes these inputs, adapting, making decisions, and changing policies. Arrows going out represent outputs, the services Merivale offers, its compliance actions, and its reputation or legitimacy in the community. The key idea is that Merivale's survival and success depend on continuously responding to these external inputs and adjusting its outputs, creating a feedback loop between these organisations and ever-changing environment. This interaction is what makes Merivale an open system, constantly changing resources, ideas, and influencer with the world around it. Now I'll pass on to Nick.
Thanks, Alex. I'll now discuss how OST can be applied to Merivale in order to address the prevalence of sexual harassment within the organisation. Due to the importance of external inputs within a service-based organisation like Merivale Restaurants, utilising stakeholders as a force of change to the current work atmosphere is key to putting the necessary pressure on management. This can be done by informing suppliers, VIP patrons, critics, and other influential promoters of the changing attitude towards sexual harassment, thus setting up a layer of accountability and participation with these stakeholders. As restaurant owners, the public image of Merivale is key to continuing customer inflow. As such, the influence of these stakeholders will help to adjust the culture or risk alienating the consumer base. Whilst this will aim to establish a safer working environment where staff are empowered to speak up and trust can be formed, it can only be solidified by setting up rules and protections that apply at all levels of the organisation. These rules can be as simple as ensuring a mix of genders amongst management, banning sexual jokes in the workplace, and ensuring a clear line of communication for anyone with complaints. Then, by working within the bounds of Fair and Safe Work New South Wales and with consultation of relevant unions, official and legally compliant rules can be laid that enable a safe environment where sexual harassment is far less likely to occur.
Workplace harassment has placed the hospitality industry under intense scrutiny. The Respect at Work report shows that 39% of women and 26% of men have experienced workplace harassment in the past 5 years. With hospitality among the highest risk factors for Merivale, this means adapting is not optional. Ignoring these pressures risks high staff turnover, penalties, and a loss of reputation. First, we must strengthen workplace culture by introducing zero-tolerance policies and regular training programs. Confidential reporting channels and whistleblower protections will empower staff to speak up safely. Second, by embedding open system thinking, we can monitor external pressures, regulators, unions, media, and customers, while creating effective feedback loops through staff surveys and external audits to guide reform. Third, we need regulatory and stakeholder integration. That means working with Fair Work, Safe Work New South Wales and unions to ensure compliance, while also engaging suppliers, VIPs, influencers, and customers to reinforce cultural change. Fourth, we must ensure transparency and accountability. Independent third-party audits and public progress reports will build credibility and accountability. Must extend across all levels of management. Finally, these reforms must be sustainable. By investing in long-term HR strategies focused on recruitment, retention, and well-being, Merivale can foster a safer, more inclusive atmosphere. This not only rebuilds trust, but secures long-term legitimacy. In short, adaptation is survival. By implementing these reforms, Merivale can turn external pressure into an opportunity, leading the industry in cultural change while strengthening both public trust and business performance.
Now, to bring our presentation to a close, we want to highlight 3 key points. Addressing workplace harassment in the hospitality industry requires more than internal HR policies or one-off initiatives. We urge the government, community, and organizations like Merivale to work together to strengthen workplace structures and legitimacy. This includes clearer policy, stronger accountability measures, and a culture that truly prioritizes safety and respect. Without this collective effort, harassment remains a hidden issue that continues to harm individuals and weakens the industry as a whole. Through the lens of open system theory, we see why Merivale must adapt. Organizations do not exist in isolation. They are sloped by external forces such as regulations, public opinion, and cultural expectations. If Merivale fails to adapt, it risks losing legitimacy, trust, and even its competitive position in the market. But if it embraces adaptation by aligning its structure with external pressures for equality and safety, it strengthens both its survival and its reputation. In short, adaptation is not just useful, it is necessary. This issue is not just about Merivale. It speaks to a wider lesson for all organizations in Australia and beyond. Gender equality and workplace safety are challenges that require ongoing engagement with broader institutions, governments, communities, advocacy groups. and employees themselves. When organizations adapt and respond to these external pressures, they don't just survive, they help create cultural change. And that cultural change moves us closer to a society where every worker, regardless of gender or roles, feels safety, valued, and respect. So, our conclusion is simple: Merivale and organizations like it must adapt, engage, and lead. In doing so, they only need to strengthen themselves but also play a critical role in building a more equal and respectful Australia. Thank you for being a very patient listener.